Hey, what's up, D3? This is Corey coming to you from a very stormy Indianapolis. So I'm hoping I make it through the webinar without the power going out, which, fun fact, it did yesterday at the national office. We went pitch black for like 2 seconds, and then it came back on. But we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Welcome to the August compliance webinar. We are titling this month Back to School Compliance Style, since it is that time of year. I really appreciate everyone logging in and hanging out, because I know it is super hectic, especially those of you that maybe have a football team that are headed back to campus this week. So let's get into it. Here's our game plan, what I'm going to cover the next 30 minutes. Going to talk a little bit about the NIL working group. We're going to talk about some updated resources and where you can find them. D3 is in the portal now, so I want to make sure you're feeling good about that change in our rules. I'm going to do what I can to talk about and give you some information about the age-based eligibility model, because we know our friends in Division I and Division II now are making this change, and so we'll talk about what that really means. Wouldn't be a compliance webinar if I didn't mention the 2027 convention proposals, what we've got in the cycle at this point. And then we're going to finish up, if we have time, with some questions. So starting with the NIL working group, you guys remember back in January at convention in DC, you all adopted a resolution to basically say, hey, governance structure, go figure out what D3 is looking, or NIL is looking like in Division III. You put your heads together and then report back to us as the membership with your findings and with something to help us have some clarity in this area. So a working group was created. It met for the first time at the end of June, also met at the end of July, and we're going to have monthly meetings leading up to convention. Part of what that group has done so far is it has met with staff from Division I and II to kind of see what does the NIL landscape in those divisions look like. They have had discussions about what the NIL landscape in Division III looks like from their perspective. But part of their work this fall to get them ready to give you an update at the issues forum in January is to ask all of you, what are you seeing about NIL? What are you hearing about NIL in Division III? So my first update is this is your official notice that we will be using some survey questions, using a QR code to get that feedback. And that feedback is going to help the NIL working group do its work this fall and report out to you in January. So we're hoping right around September 1, we're going to put a QR code in the monthly update to have administrators, ADs on campus give us some feedback. We are going to work through our coaches associations to give a QR code to the coaches out there. What are they seeing? What are they experiencing? Are the recruits even asking about D3? And then we're going to engage National SAC to make sure they get their own QR code and to make sure that the student athlete voice is part of this process. So we know that you're often bombarded with surveys, and it's the beginning of September is a crazy time of year generally, but the surveys are going to be short, 5 or 6 questions max. It's all yes or no. It's not going to be writing out any sentences about how you feel necessarily. So we really hope you do us a solid and give us some feedback so that the working group can put their heads together and do some work on behalf of D3. All right, moving to the updated resources, because it is back to school time, beginning of a new academic year, want to make sure that you're all feeling comfortable and set up for success on campus. And the first update I have for you is that our playing season resources, our one-pagers that are on nca.org, that all have those fancy handy charts at the bottom that say, hey, here are the NCAA selection dates for each sport. And for the spring sports, not only here are the selection dates, but here are the 15-week back dates. because we know NCAA selection dates and 15-week back dates for spring sports are how you determine and how you help structure your season. So all of these seasons, so fall, winter, spring, and the period sports, golf, rowing, and tennis, your charts, all of your dates have been updated through the 28-29 academic year. There are a couple of sports that you'll see are still blank, and that's because we're waiting for our friends in championships to give us those exact dates. So once we receive them from our champ staff, we will update not only these one-pagers, but this chart or these charts also live in the back of bylaw 17 in the manual. So we'll make sure to get those dates there as well. Some of you may have noticed, if you've been to ncaa.org lately, that it got a facelift in a pretty significant way. It is a lot prettier now. This is a super great picture on the front page of ncaa.org. But as part of that facelift, a lot of our resources kind of got moved around, and you may be wondering, okay, well, I knew where everything used to be on the former website. Where do I find stuff now? And so I wanted to spend just a couple of slides running through probably the most helpful places that you might want to check things out at, and then hopefully it'll make it a little bit easier for you to navigate moving forward. So we're going to start at the top of the ncaa.org homepage. I didn't circle the jobs button, but hey, if you're looking for a new job, you do you. Click that link. It'll take you to the NCAA marketplace where you can see what people are out there advertising for. But the other buttons along the top are pretty important, right? So the My Apps button, click that. That's going to take you to your login page for My Apps, so you can get to things like RSRO, LSDBI, the transfer portal, the learning portal, program hub, all of those apps that you use on campus, you can access them by clicking that button. Next to that, eligibility center, really important one, right? For your own informational purposes, but also we're sending all the D3 kids to the eligibility center. Our international kids are going to the EC to get their amateurism certified. And then all of our incoming freshmen for the 2026 fall term and now in future academic years, remember, we're asking them to get those NCAA ID numbers for grad rates reporting purposes. So knowing how to get to the eligibility center to get them to sign up for those profile accounts and generate their ID number, super important. That link will take you there and give you all the other EC resources as well. I also circled the little magnifying glass. I think something that we heard from you as the membership, and I know that our comms and tech staff here at the national office has heard from staff from other departments, is that the search function on the previous website wasn't super helpful, wasn't really user-friendly, kind of rarely pulled back the results that you were actually looking for. That's been updated a little bit. It has a better functionality than it used to. It's taking you to actual pages on the NCAA website instead of like random things on Google. So check that out if you're looking for something on .org that I don't talk about today. Then let's get to the D3 specific information. If you hover over that top part that says divisions, this white area is going to pop up, and it's going to have a lane for each of the 3 divisions, Division 3 included. So you can see governance committee, legislation and policy, membership and institutional resources, infractions, and academics. Those titles are moderately helpful, but let's do a little bit of a deeper dive so you can navigate this a little bit more easily. If you are wondering where you can find things like compliance resources, so those playing season one-pagers I just talked about, the playing season start date calculator, the social media resource, all of that stuff that used to live on the Division 3 compliance page. If you're looking for information about our legislative process, what's in the cycle right now? Can I get a link to the manual? When's the official notice gets posted, where's that going to live? If you were like me on campus and you lived and breathed by the required forms and actions list, where is that living? Where do I find info on waivers? Hey, we're about to do a lot of compliance paperwork when our kids get back. Where can I find the 26-27 academic year compliance forms? And where can I find the link and the instructions for the NCAA rules test? All of that lives on the legislation and policy page. So hover over D3, that white box shows up, go to legislation and policy, do your scrolling, you will find all of those things on that page. If you're wondering, hey, where do I find committee reports? What is the NIL working group up to? Hey, I know President's Council just met last week. Where's a report out of what went down in that meeting? Hey, I want to be on a committee. What committees are going to have vacancies? How do I apply? All of that information. You're going to hover over D3. You're going to click on the committee box. It's going to take you to all of that information. What's kind of cool about the new D3 committee page is not only does it have information and reports on things like Management Council, President's Council, ILC, SAR, the working groups. If you keep on scrolling down, there's also information about all the sport committees too. So if you're kind of wanting to dip your feet in the governance structure and process, you can find sport committee info there as well. And then my last one, where do I find the transfer portal educational module? If you have been listening to me for the last year or so talk about this module, I've always said it's going to be on the want to transfer page on ncaa.org. Well, wouldn't you know it, with this new website, the want to transfer page is gone. So the new home for the transfer portal module is on the transfer rules and eligibility page. So hover over divisions, you go to all the Division III information. To get to this transfer rule and eligibility page, you actually want to hover over student athletes. Another big white box will pop up with different pieces of information for student athletes, including a link to this page. And speaking of the transfer portal, like I said at the beginning, we are in. August 1st has come and gone. That means Division III has moved from a permission to contact structure to notification of transfer. Some things stay the same, like that first bullet point there. You cannot talk to another NCAA school, D1, D2, or D3. You can't talk to their student athletes unless their name is popped up in the portal. Or if they are coming from another Division III school, you have gotten a self-release from that individual. The only kind of exceptions there are if the student athlete has officially withdrawn from their original school, or if they've graduated, they don't have to be in the portal. But more often than not, no talking until that name pops up in the portal. Those of you that have been doing this compliance thing for a little while, you know this, but I'm just going to say it again. Transfer portal, it's not there for recruiting. It really is a compliance platform. It's going to house the information that your compliance officer needs to certify transfer student athletes once they get to your campus. It's not going to give you stuff like film or height and weight or position or what kind of major they're interested in, GPA at previous institutions, and all of that. So if you are a coach and you want to check out the transfer portal, that's great. But know that your big function in there is going to be seeing the name so that you know you're able to talk to someone. Quick reminder that unlike our friends in D1 and D2, Division III does not have transfer windows. So if a Division III student athlete wants to go in, they can be put in at any time of the year. And then the educational module that I just mentioned, it's on the transfer page of ncaa.org, and that's a publicly facing link, so they don't need any sort of login or anything to access that link and watch that module. This slide is a screenshot of the transfer portal, and hopefully all my compliance officers out there, ADs, those of you that have administrator access on the portal, hopefully you have noticed what's circled there in the red, a new little tab at the top of your screen. It's called the Education Module List. If you're in the portal and you click on that tab, it is going to show you all of the student athletes at your institution who have watched the educational model and done the little attestation that's at the end. What I would note here, and I know that if you go into the portal at real time, you're going to get a pop-up, but I do want to just say it again. Just because someone watches the model or the module, excuse me, it doesn't mean that you have to create them an account in the portal. Remember, our process is a two-step one. They have to watch the module and they have to come talk to you and ask for that written notification of transfer. Both of those things need to happen before you create that entry for other schools to see their name in the portal. Whether they watch the module first and then come talk to you, or they talk to you first and you're like, hey, remember to watch the module. The order doesn't matter, but both of those things need to happen before you create that entry. Okay. This is the topic that I'm guessing most of you have logged on to this webinar to hear about, and it's age-based eligibility. So please take it easy on me with the questions, but I'm going to answer them as best I can. As I said, D1, D2, they're in. Division I, their cabinet adopted this back in June. Division II, its executive board used its emergency powers to adopt emergency legislation just last week. Both divisions are going in with this age-based model, beginning with the 26-27 academic year. The first bullet on this slide is really important, and you're probably going to think I'm nuts and being super nitpicky here, but it is a really important distinction. The age-based eligibility model is not 5 for 5 or 5 in 5. So what you hear or what you might read or what you might see on social media that says 5 for 5, 5 in 5, that's not accurate. And the reason why it's not accurate is because saying 5 for 5 or 5 in 5 implies that a student athlete is guaranteed 5 seasons to play their sport. That is not the case under this new model that D1 and D2 are going to. The actual way to think about things is it's a window, and the window is going to open on the earlier of an individual's initial enrollment in college, any college, full-time enrollment, or the academic year that starts after they turn 19. Whichever of those two things happens first, their window opens. Their window is then going to close 5 years later. And what the student athlete does in that 5-year window is up to them. Maybe they play 5 times. Awesome, great for them. Maybe they play 1 or 2 times and then they get hurt. That's their story. Maybe they ride the bench all 5 years. That is an option as well. So it doesn't guarantee you that you will get 5 seasons. It guarantees you get a 5-year window to be eligible. And what happens during that window happens. And once the window closes, you're no longer eligible for participation. Because of this, there are no more waiver opportunities in Division I or Division II. So things like hardship waivers, no longer. Extensions of eligibility to ask for more time, no longer. Season of competition requests to say, hey, I've got time left, but I want another season, no longer, because the model doesn't recognize seasons anymore. We have been getting a ton of questions in about this model, what it means for Division III, what does Division III do? What if someone comes to me from another division that had this model? How do I deal with them on my campus? We published last week an educational column. The date on it is August 6th. It's to help you with some application questions that you may be facing in the coming weeks, the coming months, the coming academic year. If you have a student athlete who is interested in going to one or two in the future, check out that ed column for sure. We will continue to update it as needed. If more and new and unique questions come in, we'll work with our colleagues in other divisions to get answers to those questions and republish the ed column as appropriate. The last bullet on this slide is probably the most important thing that I can say about this age-based model. If you have a student athlete on your campus who has a plan to one day wind up at a Division I or a Division II institution, and they want to know implications of that journey, have them work with that Division I or Division II school to answer their questions. Our Division III GMS staff, we're not going to be able or permitted by our legal friends in legal here to make individual eligibility assessments for D3 kids. So if you have a D3 kid who wants to go elsewhere, have them work with the compliance office at their potential new institution to get those questions answered about their individual circumstances. Age-based eligibility, the second most important thing I'm going to tell you today is Division III is not in. We have not changed anything. Our rules are exactly the same as they were 2 months ago, 3 months ago, last year. You have 10 full-time semesters or 15 full-time quarters of enrollment to play 4 seasons of a given sport. With that said, if you have been tracking our legislative process, there is a proposal in the cycle for convention at January to say, hey, is D3 going in as well? It has received co-sponsorship, so it is up for a vote of the full membership in Anaheim when we get together. If at that time the membership adopts the age-based model, it would kick in for 27-28. And so as you get things up and running on your campus this fall, as the student athletes come back, have conversations on your campus. Is this where Division III should go? Should we have this model where we forget seasons and just go to an age-based window, and student athletes would have the opportunity to participate fully, some, or not at all during that window? Last section, and then hopefully I have some time for questions. 2027 convention proposals. We have 5 proposals who have met the threshold that will definitely be on the docket for January. One is to make National Collegiate Championship for women's flag football. Women's flag football killed it this spring. They met the required 40 institutions across all 3 divisions right away. So there'll be a vote in all 3 divisions about whether they get a National Collegiate Championship. There is a proposal about pre-enrollment, so before anyone gets to college, an individual being able to use an agent. The age-based model, I just talked about that on the previous slides. There is also a proposal about terms on both management and president's council, and if someone has to leave their position before the term is over, can a conference fill that vacancy? And then there are 2 football proposals in the cycle right now. One is sponsored by 20 institutions, and so because they've hit that 20 institution threshold, that proposal is definitely moving forward. There are also proposals that are still looking for some friends. They have their initial sponsor or some sponsorship, but they haven't hit that threshold to officially move forward. One would have a limited window of reconsideration. So at convention, at the business session, if a proposal is not decided by a wide enough margin, there would be a limited window to reconsider that proposal once all the voting is over. There's something in there to make certain bylaws division dominant. What division dominant means is having a higher threshold to reach in order to amend a piece of the D3 rules. You guys have heard me talk before when I say one institution, one multi-sport conference, national SAC, one vote, majority wins. Well, a division dominant proposal wouldn't just say majority wins, it would actually require a higher threshold in order to change something. There is a proposal about 2-day meets in track and field, and the ability to count a certain number of those 2-day meets as a single date of competition in that sport. There is a proposal about changing some of the championships awarding processes for sports like wrestling that do things by bracket versus time or distance, like swimming or track and field. And then the last one that's still looking for some more friends to hit that sponsorship threshold is the not institution sponsored spring football, but the conference sponsored spring period football proposal. Are we done with proposals? No, we are not done from proposals, because two very important reminders. We have a comment period. I know Sarah talked about this on last month's webinar. I'm going to talk about it again. All of the proposals that are currently in the cycle, so that I just showed you on those previous two slides, they are in LSDBI. You can go comment. Maybe you click on age-based eligibility and you're like, this is the best idea ever. Or you click on it and you're like, this is terrible. It goes against the D3 philosophy. Let us know. Start the conversation now. Don't save it for January at convention. Another example, the division dominant proposal. Well, what bylaws are the sponsor thinking of making division dominant? All the bylaws, just some? Maybe you have an idea of bylaws that you think should have that higher threshold. Put it in a comment, in the comment period. That comment period goes for a couple more weeks. It goes through 5 p.m. Eastern on September 1st. After September 1st, we give all of the comments to the proposal sponsors, and then they get 2 weeks to figure out if they want to make any tweaks to their original proposal. So really, really important. We really want to engage the membership using that comment period. And then last reminder, we are in the second year of our new legislative cycle in Division 3, which means you actually have up until September 15th to submit a proposal to the national office. So if you saw my slides with what's in there currently and you're like, well, I've got another idea, I want to get it submitted, go find some friends and get it in by September 15th. If you want to do that, those friends have to come in the form of 4 multi-sport conferences or 20 institutions from 4 multi-sport conferences. All right, split in just under the deadline. I do see that there's a question in here from KB. Are there any practical best practices that can be used for potential transfers from other divisions that do have to follow a transfer window? For example, how should our schools handle a potential transfer whose prior schools will not put them in the portal due to that division's legislation? Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm not sure there's anything that we can do about it. If the potential transfers D1 or D2 school won't put them in, and they're being stubborn, it doesn't give our D3 coaches or our D3 schools any flexibility to say, hey, we're just going to talk to you anyway. Your old school's being lame. You have to get that name. You have to get that permission before you can have those conversations. So I know that's not a great answer, but I'm not sure there's much we can do besides ask pretty please to that D1 or D2 school to put them in. Another question for clarification on NCAIDs. Are we only required to collect and store them for 2026 high school grads? Yes. So all of your upperclassmen, your sophomores, juniors, seniors, however you have designated them to do your grad rates reporting in future years before 2032, they don't need the NCAID number. It's only for incoming freshmen this fall 26 term and future academic years. Is it a waste of time to have your sophomores, juniors, seniors have NCIDs? Not necessarily. If they ever need a waiver, they ever want to be put in the transfer portal, they're going to need an NCID number anyways. But for purposes of this grad rates reporting and the management council policy, it's just the freshmen moving forward. Can you tell us how to get to the ed model again? Yes, I can. You go to nca.org. Over the top, hover over the student athlete area, big white box will appear, click on the transfer and eligibility rules page, and you'll scroll down. There's a D1 section, a D2 section, and a D3 section with our module link. Or send the link. Great question, or comment, I guess. I'll make sure that the module finds its way into the monthly update for sure. Okay, we hit 2 o'clock. I know we talked a lot about a lot of stuff on this webinar, but I, again, really appreciate everyone hanging out. I know it's a busy time of year. Send those questions into staff if you have them. This is recorded. Bryn will get the slides posted, and we'll see you guys next month. Thanks.